In the NFL, you have quarterbacks that constantly give the ball to your defense, put the ball in your defense's hands, throw interceptions, get sacked, fumble the ball, overthrow their receivers, and just are a complete detriment to the team. Now, while all the quarterbacks on this list, it is not completely their fault that they have sucky stats this year, but I'm going to go over the top 5 most disappointing quarterbacks through this waypoint of the season. Now, Sam Darnold is not on this list, debated that, but there is a quarterback on this list that nobody will even think of, and he's played enough games to where he needs to be on this list. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the top 5 most disappointing quarterbacks of the NFL season. I wondered, is my quarterback part of the problem on my team? You probably have. Now this list was not difficult to make, but difficult to order, because I originally had Sam Darnold at the number 2 spot, but I said, let me give him some credit because I found a quarterback that was much worse. I'm going to go over, as you don't know already, the top 5 most disappointing quarterbacks to this point in the season. Again, whether it's the offensive line, no receivers, or running back, there's always excuses as to why a quarterback isn't good, but I naturally believe that these quarterbacks should be better than they are with the talent they have around them. Carson Wentz is not on this list. He does not deserve to be on this list. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not on this list. Sam Darnold is not on this list. Daniel Jones, it's his rookie season. He's certainly not on this list. But this is a list that I felt I was good with. And again, there is someone on here, and when I mention his name, you will say, oh, wow, I did not even think of that. And I will tell you why. Unfortunately, the Tennessee Titans are a victim of this list, and that is the number 5 spot. Marcus Mariota comes in at number 5 for me. Now, I know the offense has been non-existent, but the problem is that the second Mariota got benched this year and Tannehill came in, the offense was given life. Mariota, the offense under Mariota through the first 6 weeks was completely non-existent. He was playing, not at all his fault necessarily, but Mariota only had 1,100 yards through 6 games. He only threw 2 picks, which was a bright spot, but he also only had 7 touchdowns in 6 of those games. He was sacked 25 times, and now he is known primarily as a mobile quarterback. He did not display at all any type of flashy runs this season, and he was averaging just 196.5 yards per game, and the defense most certainly has carried this team. I think Tannehill has sparked some life to that offense. The receivers weren't getting yards. Delaney Walker was a non-factor. Derrick Henry was good, but Marcus Mariota to me was disappointing because I expected more from him. I didn't expect 300 yards every game, and it was nice to see he was throwing less interceptions, but he fumbled a lot, and he was getting sacked constantly. Again, offensive line, part of that problem. But to me, it was one of the things where he averaged under 200 yards per game as a quarterback is not very good. And honestly, we had A.J. Brown, Delaney Walker, Adam Humphries, Corey Davis, so we had targets. We didn't have maybe necessarily massively elite targets, but we had targets to throw to, and Mariota was not making those plays. He was overthrowing, underthrowing, and he's been a problem, which resulted in his benching. But yes, Marcus Mariota to me was a top 5 at the number 5 spot as the most disappointing quarterback. Number 4 is Joe Flacco. Now the team had a semi-decent offense, but Joe Flacco could not get them going. After impressing everyone in a strong preseason standard, Joe Flacco played 8 games and only threw 6 touchdowns. Compared to those touchdowns, he threw 5 picks, which isn't atrocious, but compared to just having 1 more touchdown than picked, he was sacked 26 times. His QBR was only 85 and had less than 2,000 yards, which is not necessarily the biggest deal. Joe Flacco did not do anything for this offense, and they had some names. Like I said, it's not all his fault, but he only had 6 touchdowns. That's terrible. Again, another team that defense has carried them, and even to that point, that's why the Broncos are not in the best spot right now. I think Joe Flacco's been massively underwhelming, regardless of what you say about the Broncos, and that is why he has the number 4 spot to me. Number 3, atrocious supporting cast, but I expected more. Number 3 is Andy Dalton. He has 9 touchdowns. He's played every game, but 8 interceptions. He's been sacked 29 times, and his QBR is 79. So his QBR is terrible. He's been sacked quite a lot. He only has 9 touchdowns, and he's thrown quite a bit of interceptions with 8. So, again, I know he's missing A.J. Green. Doesn't have A.J. Green, that's one thing. But just off the bat, it's Andy Dalton should be doing better than he is. He's throwing a lot of picks. The receivers aren't, the Andy Dalton Cincinnati Bengal trial, I think, is coming to an end. And I'm not saying he's not a talented quarterback, but he just doesn't fit this team anymore. It's like I said, it's very hard because some of these quarterbacks, they have absolutely no help. But I have to put him there. And number 2. Now, number 2 on this list is going to get people. Some of them are going to say, what? Number 2 is Josh Rosen. Why is Josh Rosen on this list? Now, the Dolphins have rotated their quarterbacks because they're trying to figure out desperately why this team is trash, and they're coming off of 2 straight wins. Josh Rosen played in 6 games. That's a large enough sample size. And in those 6 games, he has 1 touchdown and 5 interceptions. 1 touchdown and 5 interceptions. You have 5 times as many interceptions as touchdowns. 6 games. He was sacked 16 times, which isn't insanely awful, but it's not good. And the team itself is only averaging 95 or 94.5 yards per game when he's playing. If you are a quarterback and your yards per game is under 100, you are terrible. You are terrible. And everyone, Fitzpatrick has struggled a little bit, but he's looked a lot better than Josh Rosen has. So again, some of you might say, why is Josh Rosen on this list? This is why. 6 games, 1 touchdown, 5 picks. Sacked 16 times, team is averaging less than 100. I didn't even look at his QBR, it's got to be below 80. So that's why. That is why I put Josh Rosen on this list instead of a guy like Sam Darnold, who's also been very disappointing. Number 1, I think number 1's unanimous, and I think the people have to know this because, like I said, we held this quarterback and this team in general to such a high standard before the season, and they've been massively disappointing. Baker Mayfield is the most disappointing quarterback of the NFL this year because out of all the quarterbacks on this list, you held him to a higher standard than probably all of them. Andy Dalton's debatable. Joe Flacco, I didn't really expect him to do anything amazing. Mariota, higher standard. Rosen, not really relevant. So, Baker Mayfield's been sacked 25 times, which is not good. He has thrown 9 touchdowns. You have one of the most elite receiving corps in the league, and you've only thrown 9 touchdowns. Now, that's not absolutely awful, but his 12 interceptions is. 12 interceptions. Baker Mayfield loves to throw interceptions, and that has been evident. You have 9 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. If you have more interceptions than touchdowns in a time span of 5 games or more, you are not really doing that hot. His QBR is absolutely atrocious. It's 75.2. Like I said, he has 2 elite receivers, and he was a number 1 pick in the draft. I just think Baker Mayfield has had a tough year, and everybody was rallying behind him, and we know that he's a good quarterback, but my God. I know Odell's been underwhelming too, but how do you have Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, a good tight end, a good run game, maybe the line's not there, and you're doing terrible. You're doing terrible. And the reason why Mayfield is the most disappointing is because I held him as a standard much higher than any other quarterback on this list. I didn't really expect Sam Darnold to be that great. I didn't expect Daniel Jones to be, he's been good, but he hasn't been amazing. I did not expect Joe Flacco to be phenomenal. And Mariota, I was not expecting phenomenalness from either. But Mayfield, to me, is easily the most disappointing quarterback. That is 2 uploads one day. I had to address the brawl. And the top 5 most disappointing quarterbacks. Where I go from here, I could be not uploading tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I will elect to do NFL predictions or another top 5. But this is just... This is a fair list. 5, Marcus Mariota. 4, Joe Flacco. 3, Andy Dalton. 2, Josh Rosen. And 1, Baker Mayfield. Thank you guys for watching. It has been real.